Hi, dreamers. I'm Percival,
And I'm Vivian.
and we are your hosts of the Dreamscape Chronicles.
If you would like to share a story for us to tell or come on the show and share it yourself, we welcome all dreamers to contact us at dreamscapechronicles@outlook.com.
Welcome back, dreamers.
Hello, friends.
This is episode 10.
I can't believe we've gotten here. Can we just make a comment on that, by the way?
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't just been canceled.
Or fizzled out and died. No, but for reals, it is episode 10.
Yeah, so what do you suppose that we're going to be talking about this week?
Well, we're going to bring up kind of a controversial topic. What's new for us? We're going to get into infernal pacts, covenants, and dream deals.
Dream deals.
Yeah, that's how I'm putting it.
The dream team.
The dream team. Aw, is that us? Are we the dream team?
I guess so.
Dreamscape Chronicles gets a nickname.
Nobody gets that. Yeah, nobody changed their name. We're taking it.
Yes, we claim it now. Anyway, infernal pacts and covenants. We'll just kind of dive right in with some of the history that we do know, or at least the lore behind it, right?
Yeah, so go ahead and just break it down with what you know about this.
Some would identify a deal with the devil as a Faustian bargain, which is popularly attributed to the legend of Faust and the figure of Mephistopheles, as well as being a big factor in Christian tradition. According to the traditional beliefs regarding witchcraft, an infernal pact means a promise between a human and a demon or the devil himself, trading their soul for diabolical favors. These favors vary from tale to tale, but they all seem to involve youth, knowledge, riches, fame, and power. Some even believe that individuals who make these pacts also promise demons that they will kill children in return, or they would make them his, promising their souls at their own birth. Many midwives were accused of this in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance when there was an influx of children dying at birth. They were said to have taken part in the witches' sabbaths, getting down and dirty with a demon or two, and sometimes helped succubus and incubus to mate and procreate with unsuspecting human victims.
So that touches kind of on our last topic.
It does, yeah. If you guys want to hear a little bit more about this, we do talk about it in our last episodes. Go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, it was our episode on sleep demons. Not so much on the deals, but...
No, but it does bring a lot of good background material to this conversation we're about to have.
That's true. So talking about these pacts and promising the souls of their self or others, you hear that the firstborn is often one of those poor souls who get bargained off.
Yeah, I have heard that a few times. Bringing it back to dream covenants, covenants may sound more harmless as they are just known as agreements between two or more people working in tandem to reach a specific goal, but there are covenants that some people are very much bound to that they are completely unaware of. Insane as it is, covenants are not only reserved for things of the natural, but, as you'll soon hear, creatures of the spirit realm, particularly in our dream. They too are subject to covenants and are often unknown to all parties. In the spirit realm, agreements are not just reserved to directly stating, yes, I agree in the dream. Agreeing to something in a dream could simply be represented by you signing something but not knowing what you're signing. Other signs of dream agreements or covenants could be seen when you see yourself hugging, kissing, holding hands, walking together, being married in your dreams, or even having sex in your dreams.
Yeah, and I think another theory is generational curses could be passed down from generation to generation for the most part through our dreams as well. For example, when you dream about a deceased relative, these could be familiar spirits or entities disguised, attempting to get you to agree in your dreams to pass along a generational curse.
That's very interesting to think about too. I mean, I've definitely had a dream about a deceased relative. Have you?
I have too. I think most people have in one way or another, and not that they're all pertaining to generational curses, but it is something to think about.
Well, I sincerely hope they weren't there to pass one along.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to our original topic, the Faustian bargain, what do we know about Faust?
Well, it's kind of interesting. The Faustian bargain was well defined as a deal wherein a person would be willing to trade something of theirs that held moral or spiritual importance for something of material gain or stuff and riches. But this term actually comes from the legend of Faust, which is a German tale that has been written and rewritten by a few authors and playwrights. It's basically about a scholar who sells his soul to the devil for unlimited worldly knowledge and pleasures. But even though the tale is over 400 years old, its pop culture fame kept it alive through years of movie, literary, and musical adaptations.
Right. Yeah, there's plenty of movies that adapt this theme.
Yeah, but what the crazy thing is it actually seems like it is based on a real person who's behind this myth, a Johann George Faust, who's a German theologian and alchemist from the 16th century. And the little bit that we know about the historical figure is that it was rumored he was a fraud. Some said he was a necromancer, but everyone agreed that he dabbled in black magic.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard of him being an alchemist before.
For sure, yeah. Then Faust died around 1540, and after his death, someone wrote and distributed copies of a pamphlet detailing his wicked deeds. And then it became popular enough, it spread across Europe. And then some decades later, one of those pamphlets came to the hands of an English playwright, Christopher Marlowe, who was inspired to write and star in Dr. Faustus. And this was one of his first creative works based on the legend of Faust. That guaranteed Faust's place in history as one of the most well known men to ever have made a deal with the devil.
Interesting. So it seems like almost a type of propaganda turned into like a popular piece of cultural.
Entertainment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, interesting enough, a widespread legend about its supposed devilish pact centered around Pope Sylvester II around the years 946 to 1003. He was a renowned scholar and scientist of his time, known for his studies of mathematics and astrology in the Muslim cities of Cordoba and Seville, the tale popularized by William of Malmesbury and Cardinal Bino claimed that Sylvester II had also learned sorcery, acquiring a book of spells stolen from an Arab philosopher. According to the legend, he made a pact with a female demon named Meridiana, who appeared after he was spurned by his earthly love. With her help, he allegedly rose to the papal throne. Another version of the story suggests that he was made pope by playing dice with the devil. So this is potentially where the heart of these tales really get their start from.
That's super intriguing. And it's kind of interesting that he was, spurned by love, and then all of a sudden a demon comes to taunt him, tease him, whatever you want to call it, basically tempt him into making that deal.
Right, and we hear this a lot, and I think a lot of these demons seem to be like a trickster of nature.
Definitely.
And it's kind of interesting because in this time frame, it wasn't shortly after this that we actually start seeing a different conversion of what the devil and demons actually are. Because prior to the 11th to 12th century, the devil really wasn't that big of a deal.
No,
He was kind of the guy in the background who, you know, did silly, goofy things that caused havoc essentially, but it wasn't until, the wars following with crusades and famine, the plagues, that the Catholic Church actually needed kind of
scapegoat.
yeah, essentially a scapegoat.
Makes sense.
Funny enough, you're the scapegoat. So the idea of where the devil gets his visual appearance doesn't come until much, much later. And I think it's, from what I can tell, it's like a conglomerate of multiple different types of gods and deities kind of mashed together.
Like Baphomet.
Funny you mentioned Baphomet because the Crusaders were technically persecuted for worshiping Baphomet.
Well, and then he was later, the satanic idol, for Satanism in general.
Yeah, you can pretty much find this in any of your local crystal stores or, where you find your memorabilia like what is it? They're popular in malls.
Hot Topic?
Yeah, Hot Topic. And go get your Baphomet ashtray and your Baphomet incense holders.
Yeah.
Um, while I don't necessarily think Baphomet is Lucifer, he's something else. But that's,
He's in a way very popularized for the idolatry of Satan, of the devil, because he's the goat's head in the pentagram. And in a way he became the stamp, the seal.
yeah, there is a ton of imagery with Baphomet if you kind of look at the overall picture, the art that's behind him. There is a lot of symbolism in Baphomet itself. So that's a whole rabbit hole itself. But talking about the imagery of these guys with the Baphomet, Francisco Goya, his Witches Sabbath painting is a very good point to this. Like they're worshiping a goat like demon. It's kind of like Baphomet, not exactly, but I think these kind of things is where they get the idea behind this.
I mean, even D&D plays with it. It's all popularized imagery at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. So you have like the great god Pan,
Mm,
who is a satyr essentially. So he has like, hoofs and horns, kind of humanoid.
sure.
And then you have other different types of deities that resembled very similarly to what we would consider the devil today, with the red skin and his pitchfork and, the little pointy tail and horns. But a lot of these weren't conceptualized until much, much later in history, whereas like early Christians and most other religions didn't really relate him to the imagery that we see today
Hmm.
as, the pitchfork wielding imp like creature.
Right, right. So in a way, he is another piece of propaganda.
Right. Like the Gnostics essentially believed that the devil would have been the demiurge, which it's kind of like this great universal serpent that created our world, underhanding the greater creator, if you
Mm,
will.
okay.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there on the demiurge and the creation myths behind that. So I don't want to go too far off topic, but it's another character that is kind of reflected as being the devil.
Another fork-tongued figure, quite frankly.
Right. And then I think one of the biggest interpretations is when you get to like Dante's Inferno and these different layers of hell where people are trapped. And by the time he sees, Lucifer or Satan or whatever you want to call the devil, he's actually like encapsulated in ice.
Hmm.
So it's like the idea of hell frozen over. It's like
Right.
already done in the Divine Comedy. But yeah, it's very unique that he's changed form over quite a few centuries.
But it seems, and this is just my 2 cents, and that's what it's worth. It seems like every form he's been conceptualized under has been for a reason. Like it is, um, I mean, it's more propaganda in that way. I hate to repeat myself, but that's basically what it is.
Right, yeah. And it's a big thing that happened, during like the Inquisitions and different times in our history that the church really needed someone to blame.
Mm.
And ultimately, the first angel,
He wins.
he's the, like you said, the scapegoat for most of
Yeah.
all this stuff. So I view him definitely more as a trickster myself than anything else. Like everybody is just like, oh, he's pure evil. But it seems more that deception, misconception, and a lot of other things revolve around it to where if you think about it from a certain point, the evil that comes from the devil comes from us, from people.
Hmm.
Because he's kind of like, here's a match, but you burn down your house. Kind
Right.
kind of thing. Like he's.
Well, in a way, because of his imagery conveniences here, it seems very very similar to like the commercialization that we have today. there's chocolate milk commercials from the 90s or whatever, where it was good for your bones, although you were consuming far too much sweets and it was chocolate. It's like, come on. But at the same time, it was just a commercial. So you went and did whatever you wanted to do. If you were buying the milk, you were drinking it, you were feeding it to your kids, then you're the one that gave them diabetes type of thing. But really, people wanted to blame the commercials. And it's like, okay, but who's really to blame?
Have you had your Ovaltine today? But yeah, there is a whole list of different, I don't even know what to call it, threads you could pull to kind of like figure out where his imagery comes from.
Mm.
But most of the time, it seems like in history, the deals with the devil didn't come till much later. Whereas prior to around 1000 AD, before that, he's really just a nuance
Mm.
in culture. And then, with magic and that kind of thing, before then, it was also kind of just silly. Like most people didn't really think too much about like, oh, magic is demonic. It's dealing with the
Mm.
devil. And even though it is in the Bible about practitioners and divination and things like this, um, it really wasn't that big of a deal until the Catholic Church actively, pursued. And I don't remember off the top of my head which pope it was a little bit later, but he pretty much declared like all magic is evil.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have the same kind of systems that we did. So you had like a magic court and your typical, you robbed from your neighbor, you stole his sheep court. So like there were different
Different levels of
avenues.
sins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are different ways that they had to prosecute people back then for this stuff. And unfortunately, our history is chocked full of massacre based around, the Catholic agenda. I
Sure.
guess if you want to go that
Well,
route.
and even if we take a bigger perspective step back, I grew up in a very traditionally Baptist home. And when you learn about the devil or you talk about the evil in biblical sense, they don't go into detail about demons or Lilith or talking about any of these other characters that are demonic or sinful or, tricksters in any way. It just gets rolled into this big bad wolf character of the devil. And it is the one big bad that you don't mess with. You don't do anything that he would have done. And ultimately, that's why myself and so many others weren't allowed to read Harry Potter.
Because Harry Potter is the devil.
He's a demonic being.
Right. And honestly, and maybe this is just me, but my perception is I kind of think that the devil, Lucifer, Satan, those three names are not even who modern religion think they are.
What do you mean?
Like the names themselves, like Lucifer is morning star or the light bringer or light bearer. So morning star, it's pretty much Venus is the morning star. And a lot of these things taken out of the old text were translated into different things. Even John the Baptist and Jesus were considered the morning star.
Really?
Other people were considered morning stars. Like if I'm not mistaken, some of the other angels in the choir were considered morning stars. So it's not just Lucifer, the morning star, or Satan as he's later proclaimed to be his name,
Right.
which is definitely not his name. But I think this is why people don't speak the true God's name. That's why they say you're not allowed to speak his name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because people don't want to call out to these things, because I definitely believe that if you speak out to these things, they definitely hear you. So like when you mentioned Harry Potter, they have Tom Riddle, who is in turn Voldemort, and throughout this series of movies, they referred to him as he who must not be named.
Right. And what's funny is I think it's because they believed that if you said his name, you were calling to him in a way, because his followers did do that. But it's kind of funny that we like attribute power to certain names in that way as well.
And that is exactly what this is basically. Like you're invoking something whether you're doing a ritual or not. A lot of these practitioners and occult lore, and even with Christianity and the name of God, you don't want to say these things because these things hear back. They hear when you speak to them. So you kind of don't want to draw attention to yourself. Is kind of the idea. That's what they're like. Hush, don't say the name.
Like really well-trained dogs.
Yeah. You don't want to call attention to yourself unnecessarily,
Hmm,
especially if you don't know how to protect yourself against unknown or unfamiliar spirits,
sure.
right? Well, where were we at? We were talking about Faust. I kind of got on like a tangent there. And we're talking about movies and stuff. There's like The Devil's Advocate, Constantine.
There's Ghost Rider, the early 2000s movie, Bedazzled with, what's his name?
Oh, I can't remember. It's the guy who played in The Mummy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. Um, Phantom of the Opera,
Yeah.
I believe, was one. Rosemary's Baby.
There's even a 70s one like the Mephisto Waltz, right?
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
It's an older one.
Spawn was even one.
I mean,
Technically,
yeah. Even if you go into the literature side, you have, the picture of Dorian Gray.
that's true. I mean, that's with Phantom of the Opera. I mean, they adapted
Based,
it, but yeah, it
yeah,
was a
a lot of it's
writing.
based on it.
But I don't know if you realize we kind of actually mentioned multiple figures that are in modern comics. And funny enough, actually, since we're talking about bargains, there's bargains in a lot of Marvel comics, actually. Mephisto pops up and actually makes a deal with Peter Parker,
Not our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
unfortunately, which I think was the undoing between him and Mary Jane.
Well, that'll, deals with the devils.
Yeah.
It'll split your relationships, man.
Of course, I don't want to do any spoilers if you're Spider-Man fans and you haven't read the old stuff, but even the new stuff because it's a huge tie-in. But Mephisto had his reasons, and again, with the trickster part of the deals, he definitely had motives into why he made a deal with him.
It's crazy too, and I just recently made this connection, but anyone who's into the show Gilded Age, which that seems like there would be no connection to this theme at all, but actually in their opera war at the very end, the opera that they're playing is Faust. And it is all about, they even have Miss Russell explain that it's all about a man who makes a deal for his soul and then ultimately regrets it. So it's kind of interesting that it's still a common theme and a well-known story.
Interesting that they put that in that show because I would not have thought that, but now that I think about it, that was kind of around the tycoon era, and it wouldn't be hard to believe that somebody could have made bargains around then.
Well, and European culture was still bleeding into America in the upper echelon classes. So it does make sense that you would see it in that context as well.
Right. And I guess it could be some subliminal hidden messages within the show.
Oh, for sure, since Mrs. Russell had basically just sold her daughter to a duke. So I think there's definitely some comparisons there. Speaking of entertainment and deals with the devil, we can definitely bring up the two violinists.
Two violinists? I've known of
Yeah.
one, but I didn't realize there was two.
Well, which one did you know of?
So the one that has the famous sonata?
Oh, the trill.
Yeah, the
The
Devil's
Devil's
Trill.
Trill,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the one
Okay.
I've heard of before. But I didn't
I
hear
got
about
you.
the other one.
So the other one is the one you're talking about is very interesting, but I'll just tell you about both of them. So there are many stories of an artist who was willing to sell their soul for incredible talent, which is a theme that has been around for hundreds of years. But one example is the Italian violinist Niccolo Paganini. And the way he could play a violin was unlike anything anyone had ever seen at the time. So some explained his gifts as being given by an unholy sender. But before Paganini, a different violinist named Giuseppe Tartini, the one you've probably heard of,
Right.
claimed that the devil appeared to him in a dream and played for him the most incredible piece of music he had ever heard. He described his experience in an interview. One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. Everything went as I wished. My new servant anticipated my every desire. Among other things, I gave him my violin to see if he could play. How great was my astonishment on hearing a sonata so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence, as I had never even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. When he awoke, Tartini tried to recreate it, and that became his magnum opus, also known as the Devil's Trill Sonata.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's someone I know.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely been more, but I guess Paganini came after Tartini.
Right. So with us talking about these musicians and deals with the devil, this is a pretty common theme actually amongst artists in the musical industry.
For sure.
So I'm sure we'll be talking about these guys here soon.
Especially the rock and roll era.
Yeah, specifically pertaining to the 27 Club.
Right, right.
Although these two violinists technically weren't part of the 27 Club,
Definitely not.
there's strange synchronicities with, demonic bargains and musicians that make this strikingly odd.
Very, very.
It's also kind of notable that in the Bible, Lucifer is referred to as being in charge of all the music in heaven, which could be why you see so many musicians making deals with the devil in the 27 Club.
Before we get to the 27 Club, let's talk about another who made a deal or a pact. So, another example of this would be when God appeared to King Solomon in a dream, asking him what he wanted from God. It was in that dream that God gave him the wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and enormous wealth. Later, after the downfall of King Solomon, there was a tale that the archangel Michael had brought him a ring that he could control the demonic spirits to better serve God's people. The ring had corrupted him, eventually summoning entities who prophesied his fall. One in particular he bound was named Anepsigos, whose domain.
Close enough.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. So we'll go with Anepsigos, whose domain was mainly associated with the moon and said she was a goddess with many names. In some translations and interpretations, she said that she was known as Erishkigal or Hecate to the Greeks. She foretold of his downfall, and it had become true. One could speculate that this was just another Faustian bargain made and he had been tricked all along.
Yeah, and I think of all of the Testament of Solomon, this is probably my favorite portion because he invokes the triple goddess, which most practitioners would know who she is. And essentially, she prophesizes his downfall. So that's super interesting.
Isn't that weird, the tie in with Hecate?
Yeah, I thought so too.
I think it was very strange that God asked him what he wanted. Like, he was just going to grant a wish rather than someone usually coming to God and begging him for something.
Yeah, and then he pretty much asked for the normal things that people want in a demonic bargain.
Right.
Those main things was, wisdom, knowledge, wealth, or eternal life.
Power.
I guess
Yeah.
4 or 5 things. So,
Pretty much.
but this gives me like a lot of Lord of the Rings vibes. 'Cause it's like one ring to rule them all.
It is funny that, during his life, they just thought he was blessed by God. But then after he's dead, then people come out with this story that, well, an archangel gave him a ring to rule the demonic world, basically, or at least bend it to its will.
Yeah, and while this came much after Solomon had already came and gone, I think it was around the first century, give or take. It's part of the Apocrypha, like it's not canonical for the Bible, but it's definitely something to look at. It's, like the Book of Enoch. It shouldn't be overlooked in my opinion, but who am I? And so if you really know anything about King Solomon and the building of his temples, it kind of bleeds into Masonic lore. So if you know anything about Freemasonry, it's believed that the Masons were the ones who helped build the temple, and this could possibly be why the negativity behind Freemasonry is there. And I wonder if this is possibly why Masons get a bad rap because they're connected to Solomon. And if he has anything to do with, these demons, it would make sense.
Like Solomon's Temple?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, it could be. That's possibly where people get things mixed up.
Or speculation from it, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about too. What's funny is that the King Solomon story kind of ties into the Faustian deal because it does kind of, it's like one of those deals where it doesn't necessarily go quite right. You know, in the Faustian deal, he asked for all of these things and was given great power and wisdom and knowledge and all these things.
Yeah, but ultimately making a deal with one of these demonic spirits and lust essentially was his downfall.
Talking about deals gone wrong,
There's always the trickery of a jinn or a genie, so to say. And that's in that same, part of the world, technically.
that's true, very Middle Eastern. Some in Egypt attribute sleep paralysis to jinn. Jinn are a prominent figure in Islamic mythology and folklore, appearing in stories like 1001 Night. In some traditions, jinn are seen as spirits of the desert, capable of both granting wishes and causing harm, seen as elemental creatures often associated with witchcraft, madness, and nightmares. Religious texts affirm their possible existence, and they are conceptualized as creatures parallel to humans, capable of choosing between good and evil and accountable for their deeds. Jinn are believed to be created from smokeless fire, similar to humans and angels, but are a distant race of their own. These creatures are said to have the power to terrify or even possess a sleeping person. The Jinn are also where we are introduced to the belief in genies, another creature known for granting wishes who tend to try to twist things just enough to make the wish maker regret their word choice. The genie's story of wishes and regrets is a theme that became very popular in many cultures' stories.
So, speaking of genies or jinn and the Middle East and that part of the world, we can probably talk about Egypt here soon because they actually have a lot of beliefs and dreams. And I think that would probably be a good episode for us to touch on. But yeah, sorry, you can continue. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Even in Western culture, we see what many consider the lesson of the story: be careful what you wish for. A lot of very popular examples would be Disney's Genie in the Lamp story, which was popularized by Aladdin. Even The Little Mermaid, who wished her voice away to have the man, only for Ursula to steal it.
Yeah. Another one is where Doctor Strange's spell for Peter in the new Spider-Man movie, No Way Home.
Yeah, the spell kind of goes awry, didn't it?
Yeah, whenever he kept trying to alter it and it kind of blew back in his face.
Yeah, he was a little too careful with his words, and then ultimately, because of it, he wasn't careful at all. Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of different reference material that we could bring up on that theme.
Oh yeah, there's tons of movies out there.
But going into deals gone awry, maybe we should mention the 27 Club now.
Yeah, I feel like most people who know about these kind of deals with the devil should probably know who the 27 Club is, but
Or at least what it refers to.
right. But they would actually be surprised that there are quite a bit of people on this list, like almost 100 people, which is a
Yeah.
huge mystery.
Probably one of the most famous on the list, who could be considered to having made a Faustian bargain, would be Robert Johnson. He recorded less than 50 songs before his sudden demise. In August 1938, just a few months after his 27th birthday, Johnson drank from an open bottle of whiskey he was offered and died 3 days later of strychnine poisoning and pneumonia. He is buried in an unmarked grave in Mississippi.
Yeah, so that's super unique because so the story that I've heard about him was like he actually was not a good player at all. Like he was not a good musician. And multiple people let him like consistently play at I guess bars or clubs at the time and
Mm.
he was just not good. And then he disappeared for a little bit of time and came back and all of a sudden he was like this amazing guitar player.
Kind of mysterious how that happened or where he got that talent.
Right, and I think that's what sparked a curiosity with people like, where did this guy all of a sudden get all of this talent? And then, his songs that, the titles were very referenced to it. So,
He definitely capitalized on the rumors.
right, yeah, it seems that way.
But even before him, and definitely after, the legend continued to grow with the deaths of several 27-year-old popular musicians between 1969 and 1971, such as Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison, all dying at the age of 27, and it became and remains a pinnacle subject of pop culture and industry lore.
Interesting. That's super cool. So, do you ever hear about the white lighter myth?
No, what is that?
So, it's essentially like a curse or a myth, I guess. It's like an urban legend kind of thing on the 27 Club, in which several musicians or artists died with the possession of a white disposable lighter, like a regular Bic lighter, throw away after you get done using it,
Yeah,
which pretty much led to such items becoming associated with bad fortune. The myth is primarily based on the death of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Kurt Cobain,
that's so strange.
all who were found with these white lighters in their possession.
I think I have a white lighter tucked away somewhere
Maybe we
that
should
I'm definitely going to
maybe we should
destroy.
throw away now.
Yes, yeah, that's going in the trash.
No white lighters anymore.
Not in my trash can, but someone's trash can will
Chuck
have a
them out
white
the
lighter.
window.
There you go. No, we don't encourage
Wait, don't litter.
litter.
Yep, that was wrong.
Don't be that person.
Don't
Yeah.
cancel. Don't cancel me.
So let's talk about some accidental deals because it seems like, these people in the music industry, maybe they knew what they were doing, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, maybe it's all curse, but there's definitely a lot of people that didn't know what they were doing when they made deals.
That's true. So not only could demonic entities or other spirits or creatures influence your dreams and possibly convince you to make these pacts or covenants with them, like we talked about last episode, the incubus and succubus also play a big role in this sleep deal thing. And I totally forgot to mention a lot of these demons actually are depicted as having bird legs.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, so not only is the Lilith archetype described as having bird legs, but plenty of other entities are described as having these strange bird legs or animal legs for that matter,
That's very strange. I mean, it does make sense though.
which could tie into the lore of the Nephilim because they're believed to have these animalistic traits to them
Mm,
amongst being giants as well.
very intriguing. But, as we were mentioning earlier, the history of midwives in the Middle Ages and Renaissance who were accused of making infernal pacts with succubus and incubus, specifically remarking on their baby making goals. This is also a great example of the kind of deal people would make without realizing it.
So this goes back to that Lilith archetype and probably, some way that they were able to make deals with people to either collect on a contract. And it seems like they were like, this is like a double deal for them, right? Because they're like getting these demon babies remade and probably signing deals consecutively with this, possibly.
Yeah, pertaining to, the turning over of their souls, or I don't know, who knows what else.
Super weird history.
But there are definitely, from our last episodes, possible connections between Lilith, Lilitu, and Succubus and Incubus, all of them not being too keen on women and babies, some too keen. But they too would trick their victims into bed. Some of them would even be disguised as, previous lovers or current lovers. So it's really not too much of a stretch for these deals to be made without the person knowing entirely what they're doing.
Not that this might be a Faustian bargain, but have you ever heard of the story of Leda and the Swan?
No.
And it's pretty much where Zeus disguises himself as like a swan and like seduces Leda.
Oh, Zeus.
Yeah, him
You
and his
silly goose.
him and his shenanigans.
What is it about him disguising himself as animals, though? Why does he think that women are going to go after it? Like, ooh, I got so hot and bothered seeing that swan.
I have no idea. I think it's a popular thing with a lot of ancient history and the lore behind a lot of these deities that they could shapeshift and present themselves in multiple ways.
I just never understood the animal side of it.
Me either, but maybe it's just
Maybe it's just a Zeus thing.
yeah. So we have a very interesting story that I think we should read to our listeners.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good transition.
This is a good example of possibly a dream covenant or pact, if you will,
Possibly.
and did or did not go wrong. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's a very interesting story nonetheless.
Definitely. Let's get into it.
I got home from a long work week, and my wife had also just returned from work from the hospital herself as a nurse. She was asking me if I still wanted to go to the party we had talked about earlier that week. Of course, I wanted to relieve some stress of the work week and converse with friends to take a load off, so Without hesitation, I said, "Yes, of course." I had been looking forward to this party all week, but something told me she didn't want to go out. She wasn't going to say that and disappoint me, being the type to always want to keep me happy. She said she was jumping in the shower to get ready and then we would be off to the party, even though I could tell she might have wanted to stay home after working her long shift. I ended up kicking back on the bed, resting, waiting for her to finish her shower so we could go and have some fun for the week. She popped out of the shower, and from the bathroom, I heard her ask me again.
Hey, do you still want to go to the party tonight?
I insisted and replied, "Yeah, babe, everyone is expecting us." She finished getting ready in her beautiful, slender black dress. Wow, I thought, I'm so lucky to have such a beautiful and caring spouse. So we grabbed our stuff and we headed out for the night, not knowing only one of us would return home. For years, I tried to find a way to get her back, even looking into all manner of ideas, crazy, diabolic, you name it. One afternoon, I had received an anonymous letter that detailed a strange arrangement for a meeting. It had information on me I hadn't spoken to anyone about and requested that if I was certain of finding a way to get my wife back, I needed to write a letter in detail as to what I wanted and sign it with a drop of blood next to my name. I did. A few weeks went by, and I almost forgot about the letter, honestly. But then another arrived with only an address, time, and date. An old bar just outside of town I had passed many times over the years, coming and going to work. Never once did I ever think about this place, or even consider stopping at this type of joint. I followed the instructions, even though I hesitated to leave, thinking this had to be some sort of joke from some asshole at work or someone trying to get back at me in some messed up way. But I walked in anyways. There were only two people inside when I got in the bar, the old bartender and another older fellow in the corner, pretty much incapacitated from one too many. Just about that time, almost having turned and left this place, I noticed a woman walking in behind me.
Good evening.
She said to me, walking past and seating herself at the bar. Her dress, I thought to myself, looked exactly like my wife's from that night. She was too beautiful and overdressed for this place, I had thought. She could have come from a ball or some fancy nightclub with what she was wearing. It was almost hard to keep my eyes off of her. I thought to myself, could this be who I was here to meet? I decided to go sit a few chairs down from her and ordered a beer. Honestly, I didn't even want it. I hadn't had a drink since the accident, and I'm not sure why I even sat down to begin with. I just had a feeling I was supposed to do this, and that's what I did. Shortly after, she turned to me with this welcoming smile and asked.
Long day, my little man?
She looked a few years younger than me, and had it been anyone else, I might have taken her condescending tone poorly, but I just shrugged it off. I replied, "Yeah, you can say that. There have been quite a few of them lately." She turned back, looking straight, telling the bartender to give me a second round on her and ordered a martini for herself. I tried to refuse, not even wanting what I had already ordered, but she insisted. I felt bad refusing such a nice offer, so I thanked her. Not looking at me, she asked.
So, are you sure you would like to make this arrangement?
Then I knew she was the one I had been sent here to meet. I thought for a moment to myself before responding. I hadn't known what to expect, but this beautiful woman wasn't it. I replied, I have to be honest, I was expecting an older gentleman, but yes, I wouldn't have driven out here to this dump otherwise. She replied,
Well, my employer hardly comes to these things himself anymore, and if you'd prefer to do business with a man, I can take my leave.
No, no, I was just surprised you were very pretty and it caught me off guard. She grinned,
Well, what is it that you can offer me then?
holding back the emotions from years of pain. I finally said, I want to give my life, my soul, in exchange for hers. She means everything to me, and I'm the reason she's gone now. She turned to me with a slight contemplating glance.
Tell me more about this.
She said, What else is there to say? I began. I made a mistake, and she's gone. She wasn't satisfied, scoffing at my comment, remarking,
You've got to do better than that.
Then she said my name. She spoke as if she knew me and everything about me. Losing my job, self loathing all day, but not once did I mention my name to her. I did sign that letter, though, so maybe that's how she knew who I was. But it didn't explain how she knew everything else about me. I started to panic. Who was this woman, and how did she know me? I started getting suspicious, asking her how she knew who I was, and if she had been stalking me.
Just to help a fellow out who is truly in need.
She replied with ease.
But before I grant what you want, I want you to tell me why.
She firmly stated. I told her the story of that night, how I got so drunk I couldn't drive. I convinced her to go out with me, and even though she wasn't drinking that night, it was my drinking too much that ultimately cost her life. After stopping for food on the way home, I spilled my drink in the car. Distracted, we pulled over, and then were hit from the rear. That was that. She was pronounced dead on the scene, and I had not forgiven myself for it. I lost my job and almost my house in the process if it weren't for others feeling sorry for me who helped where they could. She sighed in a way I could tell she wasn't pleased with my story.
I cannot help you.
What do you mean you can't help me? Isn't that what the letter basically said? You could do anything to help me find a way to get what I wanted?
Yes, but what you want is something I cannot give, as it doesn't fall within my guidelines.
What the hell does that mean? I started getting mad and stood up, throwing back. Go to hell. I paused. This is some sort of sick joke, isn't it?
Calm yourself, little man.
Again with the little man comments. Her jaunt smile went flat, looking at me as if I was nothing but a piece of dirt. Somehow, the chair kicked back under me, forcing me back into my seat. If it wasn't for this chair slamming me back into my seat, I might have walked right out. I realized in this moment she was something else. She pulled out a small pocket watch from her clutch, stopped, and contemplated without speaking for a few moments.
Would you mind taking a walk with me?
She asked. Annoyed, I retorted, What? Why the hell should I go anywhere with you? This is a complete waste of time, and I think I need to go.
Oh, time has been wasted, but you're definitely coming with me.
Giving me a sneering grin. Confused, I reluctantly gave her a whatever, sure. Her tone shifted back into a light-hearted confidence as she said,
Come with me for a few moments, and I might have an answer for you.
She tossed $100 bill on the bar and told me to follow her. I couldn't resist for some reason, so I stood up. I followed her towards the exit. She opened the door to leave the bar and gestured,
After you.
smirking with her hand held out. The moment I stepped through that doorway, however, I was in another place entirely. This was not the parking lot. This was some sort of cave. She closed the door behind me and it shut with a deep metallic thud, like a vault entrance that had just slammed shut. My heart quickened as the hair on the back of my neck rose. I walked ahead a few steps warily as my heart pounded in my chest.
Come along.
She eagerly continued. I followed. It seemed like we walked for a while in this oddly lit cave. There were small candles placed sporadically around the walls, giving off sparse light. We eventually came to an opening to a large domed chamber with many offshooting passages. A massive chair set in the center of this enormous room. There, a very large entity reclined, looking as if it was asleep. Sundials, hourglasses, clocks, and all varieties of timekeeping instruments were scattered around the great room. Some looked antiquated, almost like museum pieces, while others were more modern. I wasn't sure what was happening when the woman told me.
Stay put and try not to touch anything.
I was in shock, with nothing to reply or even the power to move, paralyzed with fear and confusion. I was so afraid of this monstrous thing lounging before me. She walked to the beast and began to speak with it, only catching pieces of their conversation. They seemed at odds. The large creature remarked, You've become soft over time. Perhaps you've spent too much time with them. She gave a cunning smile to him.
Mind your tongue. This still doesn't make us even.
I thought about running, but where? This was crazy, and I don't know what to think of all of it. The large entity turns towards me and asks, Are you certain this is truly what you want? Yes, I would do anything to have her back, even if it cost my life. It grinned, if you could call it a grin, more of a distorted smirk. The large thing beckoned me closer as I hesitantly approached. It placed its massive hand on my head, its fingers the size of my arms. I looked at the woman in my wife's beautiful black dress as she nodded and told me one last thing.
Remember this night.
That was all she said. Remember that night. And I would for the rest of my life. Suddenly, I began to feel dizzy, and I believe I fainted. It seemed like moments later I heard my wife's voice.
Hey, do you still want to go to the party tonight?
I was shocked. There she was. After what seemed like years of living in hatred of myself for what I had caused for being selfish, she was right there all along. I jumped up, ran over, grabbed her, squeezing her tightly, her wet hair soaking into my clothes. She said,
What's your deal? Are you okay?
laughing. I quietly wiped the tears from my face, trying for her not to notice. I just had a bad dream or something, but I'm fine. She looked at me, concerned, asking.
Are you sure you want to go out tonight?
I looked back at the closet door where the same beautiful black dress hung, waiting to be worn, and said, maybe we should just stay home tonight and relax and order in. She just smiled and said,
Sure, babe. Whatever you want to do. But are you sure you didn't want to go hang with your friends tonight?
no way, I replied, holding her a little closer. Let's just spend tonight here together. Since then, I have never forgotten that night. Did I pass out while she was in the shower? Was it all just a dream, or was it real? Did I somehow get a second chance? Or did I make a deal with this beastly entity after all?
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so what do you think about that?
It's definitely creepy.
So like so reading it, to me it's very borderline making that bargain, but it's not clear that he made the bargain with the woman, but did he make a bargain with the other thing, not knowing that he did?
The other creature. And honestly, if it was a bargain, I don't know, maybe the story is yet to be continued, but I don't think this is going to end well for him.
Just seems bad. Like he's always gonna remember this, even if it wasn't real. Like it's clearly haunting him.
Right. And if he did make the deal, then does that mean he did trade his soul? He's on borrowed time, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting to think about.
So to be honest, my first impression is like this is almost too cinematic.
You know, at first I thought the same. It does read very creatively, very crafted in its formation. Even if this is not a direct chronology of what they've experienced, I really do feel like it is possible that this still very much happened.
Yeah, I mean, I can visualize all of it. Like it reads very well. And I guess I can't knock somebody for being able to write, better than me.
Well, and honestly, I think it's very interesting that he was backed in a corner and he had no other solutions to his problem. But the biggest thing is that helplessness that everybody seems to feel whenever they're presented with a deal like this. You know what I mean? It's a very common theme that you see in the stories.
And the funny thing about it is, even though he didn't make the deal with this first entity, it's possible that he made the deal with the second entity. And what's to say that that wasn't part of the trick?
Yeah.
You know,
Where was there ever second entity at all?
that's true. I
He
didn't even
didn't
think about
interact
that.
with
I
it.
didn't think the second one couldn't be real. What do you think that second entity was with all the clocks?
I have no idea. Someone who manages time, it seemed.
I kind of thought like Kronos, the personification of time.
Yeah, which actually, that kind of reminds me of the iconography of Father Time. And he actually was in the Renaissance portrayed with a scythe in a lot of his imagery. And then believe that's how they got into the Grim Reaper and his scythe.
Oh yeah, so like you're running out of time, the Grim Reaper.
Right, right.
Actually, and that would actually match with the story, because if he's seen as death in a way, maybe he does have the way to reverse death.
Right. Yeah.
That's a weird. Okay, yeah,
To give life back in a
that's a
way.
neat outtake on that. I like that.
Life and time being used synonymously.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll read too much into that later.
Yeah, I like that though.
That would make sense,
Something like that. I don't know. It was super weird. It was super interesting. I liked it though.
Same. Very good share.
Nonetheless, I thought this was a nice story, knowing that dream covenants are a thing that are popularly being talked about recently.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic of conversation for multiple people.
And it's super unique because most people think that, oh, these people making deals with demons or the devil or in the crossroads, like most people believe, which I have a strange story about that I can get into one day. But
Yeah, we didn't even talk about crossroad demons. That's like a whole different bag of cats. But maybe we can touch on that another time.
yeah, we can talk about those later. Although earlier you did bring up a good point that your dreams are kind of a certain type of crossroads. So who's not to say these aren't crossroad demons?
True, true. You never know. But I definitely think we should reserve that for maybe our next witching hour.
Yeah, I think you have a point. So the next witching hour, we'll definitely talk about some of the pacts and deals that I've kind of witnessed instead of just a normal ghost stories.
Your crossroads contredans.
Yeah. Traite avec le diable. Although these stories, they were kind of dream related, so I wanted to talk a little bit about those and the few that we found.
Yeah, I think it definitely tied it back to the dream world.
So I think with that, I think we can call it a wrap.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. But dreamers, keep dreaming, and until then,
Join us in discovering what may lie beyond the walls of sleep.